All right, so now that we have styled a little bit of stuff up here in the banner with the image, and I've shown you text align as a property, then next thing we can do is start looking at background images. I'm going to jump over to a website that's called transparenttextures.com, and I'm going to recommend that you check this out. So you can look at this address, and the thing that's really nice about this website is that it will allow you to uh, look at and preview different textures as background images. So for instance, if I liked this woven pattern, for instance, I could click it and it would change the background image of the current site so that you could see what it looks like as a large repeating pattern. And that's the way that background images work, and background images are always applied through the CSS. Last time I showed you how to put an image placed inside of the HTML using an IMG tag, but now we're talking about how you can create a background image that goes and is applied to the background of an element, of any element on the page, through the CSS, just like, for instance, say that we would apply a background color, but we're also putting an image there as well. So this is a cool website because it allows you to choose different colors. Like I could see that that particular texture doesn't look so good potentially. Actually, it looks fine. It looks fine with this bright green, I guess. If you looked and to see how it would look as a dark pattern, that's kind of how it would look. Um, so you could see like what kind of background color you would have to be using in conjunction with this image. And the way that that works is that these images are semi-transparent, and different versions of these images are going to have different levels of transparency based on their patterns. And the other thing too is that depending on the image and the level of transparency in the pattern, some of them will work really well with uh, with bright colors and some won't. Some will work really well with dark colors and some won't, and so on. So you just have to kind of play around. And this page, when you first load it, it might take a while for you to scroll down the page. A lot of these might be blank. It just means that there's so many images that it's taking a while to build the previews. So just be a little bit patient. The other thing too is, like, if you know that you want to look for certain types of patterns, you can look in their predefined, what do you call these, categories. But let's just say that I know I want to look for something maybe that is for instance, it's a wood pattern, okay? And I can look at their different options and I can try them out. And what's really cool is that if I already kind of have an idea of the color palette that I want to be using, I could go over here to my color palette and I can copy, for instance, my hexadecimal number. I can copy that and jump over here and I can change the color like that, and you can see that it'll update it and show me what something might look like with that color. And so, like, if I were to choose that, you can see that it looks a whole lot better, for instance, than that one. It depends on your perspective. Actually, it looks better than this one did, because this would require either a really bright or maybe a really dark, but probably a really bright color. And so you can look at some different options here. Okay, so I think that I want something that's a lot more subtle though. I like this dark wood one, and I think that that might be a really nice subtle background. And just so you know, in case you're curious, this used to come from a thing called subtlepatterns.com, and you can go and look at theirs too. But what's nice about transparent textures is that it takes the subtle patterns and it allows you to see what different things would look like with different colors and transparencies. So anyway, there's some different ways that you can do this. You could either create a wallpaper and just click on create wallpaper and download it, or you could just download the image. Now the difference is that creating a wallpaper is going to also add the color that you've chosen so that it's a solid color. The thing that's nice about downloading just the regular the plain old transparent image that's just in grayscale is that you could change this color to be whatever you want if later you make a decision that, where you think that this color is not exactly perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and click on download. and it's going to automatically try to name it Darkwood, and you can see that it's a PNG, portable network graphic image. And we need to find the place that's appropriate to download it. So we need to go into our root level directory for this project. So I'm on my desktop, and remember I decided to set stuff up in Matt125 last name first name. Anyway, I have my assignment 2 folder. That's my root directory, but I also have an images folder. So I'm going to go inside of there, and I'm going to save it inside of images, and it's going to download it. And now I can actually use it. And the thing that's nice about transparent textures is it also kind of gives you a hint as to what you need to do here. So it shows you that you can use this CSS but just know that this is shorthand, or excuse me, longhand, if you wanted to just grab the CSS. But the problem is that what it's doing is it's using their server right here. If you were to grab this, uh, and actually use it in your code, what it's doing is, it's using the picture that's located on their server, so that if somebody were having network problems, then the image might not load, or if their server was having a problem, it wouldn't load. So you don't want to use this path. You could grab this for prototyping, and it even tells you this is mostly for prototyping. If you want to just temporarily put it in your CSS to test stuff out, you could do that. All right, so that's just something that's good to know. But what I'm going to do is go ahead and come over here, and I'm going to actually put it in my CSS directly. So I'm going to make it a background image for the entire banner. Okay, so that entire section that goes up at the top, if we come back here and take a look, it'll be this entire background up here. So what I'll do here is add a new rule. Actually, I don't want to add a new rule. For a moment, I forgot that I already had a background color applied. So I need to just add stuff to my shorthand for background. Okay, well, we already have our color assigned. After the color is assigned, I'm going to put a space, and then I'm going to type URL, and then in parentheses, I'm going to put my cursor inside those parentheses, and I'm going to type the image address to that image that we just downloaded. All right, so if I go in here and I type, well, first of all, let's remind ourselves of where it's located. If you go up here to view, you can turn your sidebar back on so that you'll know where you need to grab it from. Right now we're currently in the style sheet, and if you look at your folder structure down here under where my thing says assignment 2, what you'll see is that you've got some different folders. You've got a folder called images, and that's where the Darkwood PNG is located. See, if I click on it, it shows you. All right, but we're currently in our style sheet. You'll notice that the style sheet is just directly in the assignment 2 directory. Okay, the images folder is also in the assignment 2 directory. So that means that the style sheet needs to go knock on the door of the images folder, right, and say, hey, can I talk to darkwood.png? So what we do is type images / and it's dark-wood.png. Okay. Now, if you don't like doing it this way, I do want to show you another option, and you see it pops up over here. I want to show you another option that you could do. I'm just going to temporarily comment this out. Okay, let's comment that out. We don't have anything assigned to it. I'm going to show you how to do your background stuff in longhand. And the thing that is really useful in brackets, especially if you're a beginner, is that if you tend to screw up your image pathways and things like that, this will help you. So in longhand, if I say background, let's do background color. Well, I'm just going to have to scroll down till I get that. Background color is, I think it was 004049. Okay, as you can see up here. Now that's just the longhand for background color. If I wanted to do background image, I could come here and type. I could start typing it this way, and I can choose background image from the list. And I want to choose where it says URL. Okay. And then now what it does, if I'm using longhand for background image, it will help me find that resource so that it can type the path for me. So if I say, all right, I want to go inside of images, and I just hit return, and then I go, okay, well I want the dark wood image, then I can hit return again, and it puts it there for me. Okay, and now I can terminate it, and you see that it worked for me. So you can do this either way. You can either use longhand so that when you are trying to find an image for your background, it will help you find the path. Or if you feel confident about the pathway that you're typing, you can use shorthand. And so I'm going to comment out my longhand, and I'm going to show you again. Let's uncomment this. This is shorthand. Okay, so if I stretch this out a little bit, you'll be able to see it. So it's nice because it's on one line just using the word background. It shows me the background color, and then separated with a space, it shows me the URL that it's applying for an image. Okay. Other things that you can do is with a background image, and I'm just going to show you this, and I'm going to show you this in longhand. Okay. I'm going to show you this in shorthand, is that I could put a space here and I could say what type of repeating I want it to do. You'll notice that it's tiling it. It's repeating it along both the X and the Y axis. So both across and up and down. If I wanted to say that I don't want it to repeat at all, I could say no dash repeat. Right? So that's one option. And then you see what it does is it just shows me one tile. If I said that I wanted it to be just repeated on the X-axis, I could say repeat-X, and then it will repeat it this way, side to side. And because it was a pretty big file, physically a large file, it's just repeating it all the way across, and it doesn't look like there's a problem. If we wanted up and down, we'd say repeat Y. And you can't really tell, but it's actually repeating it. If we were to make this a lot taller, you would see that it would repeat, continue down the page. And then if we just get rid of both of that and just say repeat, it's going to automatically repeat on X and Y. Without having repeat here at all, you'll see that the default behavior when you add a background image in CSS is that it will repeat on both X and Y axis. Okay, now you'll notice up here, I haven't saved this recently, so I'm going to do, you can either go File and Save, or you can do a key command of Control or Command S. And then if I click over here on my index file, you'll notice that it hasn't been saved either. So the other thing I could have done is I could have said Save All, and then it would save all of the files that are associated with this project that are open. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and show you now, like if we were to just copy this URL that we just added, okay, I can copy that, and let's say that we want to make the articles have that background image as well. I can scroll down to find where my article styling is, and you can see that each article has this background color of that bright green. Let's just see what happens if I paste that there, and you can see that it really mutes it a lot. It makes it a lot more palatable. It makes it also so that it matches a little bit more with the other color that's up above. All right, so it's a little bit better. And then you'll also notice the footer is missing that background image. So we should probably go ahead and add that and paste that into the shorthand rule as well. And you can see that it added it down here. All right, now I will say that I might not like this being so heavily saturated, right? The green is just so green. So one of the things that I could do, right, is I could come over here and I could mess around with the color a little bit. Let's find where it is. All right, I could mess around with this and it shows me the color. So if I right click, I could say quick edit, right? And I could fool around with a few different things. I think what I would like to do is switch over here to RGBA. And but look what it did. It automatically changed my color palette, right? It automatically, you know, jumped to a different place. And so I would have to know where I'm going if I were to click this RGBA. If I come over here and I click RGBA though, what it does is it keeps it in the same color position, all right? So I can change to RGBA here. And you would think that it would allow you to come in here and actually start to add other values, but it's funny because it says RGBA right here, but really it's just RGB. So you would actually have to add the A and then add you know, like 0.9 or something like that, but you'll even still see that it didn't visually update anything, right? So it's a little misleading, right? I just want to show you that that's a little misleading that it says RGBA down here when really it gives you RGB. So just, you know, be aware of that. I'm going to go ahead though and convert this to RGB, right? And then I'll show you something that you can do. So I'm going to go ahead and click close on that. And now I've at least got the beginning of something that I can work with a little differently with the RGBA. I could either go and add A here, you know, like this, right? And then I could add a comma here and put some other value like, I don't know, 0.9 or something like that, so it's 90%. And I could start to see how that would look, you know, okay, what would like 70% look like? And it starts to look a little bit more muted. Another thing that you could do, I'm going to show you how you can undo all of that. In fact, if I wanted to go all the way back, I could also go all the way back to when it was just a hexadecimal number, okay? So another way that you can kind of fool around with this is that go into your inspector, right click and inspect it. And again, we're inspecting this right now in the live view version. You can see the 127 number up here. So you're going to see all these data brackets IDs. But if you can kind of just pretend like those data brackets ID things aren't there, what you're going to do is you look at an article here, because that's what I went and I clicked like over here in the top corner of the article, and it pulls up my section content article. The thing that's nice in Chrome is I can just click on this little color sample, and then I can start to mess around with the RGB value, you know, in a live way, but you see that it automatically started getting messed up, right? Well, that's because I'm in hex mode. You see I'm looking in hexadecimal mode. I need to click here on these little up and down arrows, and I need to choose RGBA, and now it'll let me start fooling around with the saturation or the transparency or whatever. And the other thing I could do too is, you know, based on, let's do that again. Let's open that up a little bit more. See, right now, you see the color sample is all the way over here. If I wanted the color sample to come in a little bit, so it maybe was a little bit less saturated, maybe somewhere in this range, I don't know, something like that, right? And then I can see how it looks. I can also, by the way, take a sample from someplace as well. But let's just try that, and then I could just round this off at an even 90%, so 0.9. That color is actually pretty good, and then I would just need to hit return to commit to it, right? And then this is not permanent. Remember, this is in the inspector. But what I could do is I could just come here and copy this. And the thing that's nice about it is that it gives me a live preview that Brackets sort of doesn't yet allow me to have. And I kind of like this RGBA value, so I'm going to come over here and I'm going to replace basically this hexadecimal value, and I'm going to replace it with this RGBA value that I pulled out of Chrome. And then now my live update will actually show me the change, okay? And then if you wanted to make sure, you could always get out of your live update, right? We can do that, and you can see that it just ended the session. I can close this. And now if I wanted to come back over here, I could do another live inspector, and you see that it actually looks a little bit better. It looks more like I wanted it to look. So you can see that there are multiple ways for you to kind of play around with the color of your elements, either, you know, through right-clicking inside of brackets and doing a quick edit, which is still okay, but I find that it's not quite as flexible, in my opinion. See, now that I'm already in RGBA, it's going to allow me to monkey around with that transparency level, but I didn't already have it set up that way. So if you wanted to just put like your sample from your hexadecimal number here, and then in brackets inspect it, and then play around with that color picker, you could do that too. There's some different ways that you can mess with it. Just make sure that if you use the inspector that you copy your changes from the inspector rule changes and then paste them into your real file. That's the only difference. So if you're not comfortable with copying stuff out of the inspector because you're afraid you'll lose it, then just stick here and mess around with it inside of brackets so that at least it puts the stuff directly into your document. And then when you're done, you can see that it's unsaved. You can save it. index is actually already saved, but if you wanted to be certain, you could go and say save all, and it would make sure that everything open is saved.